We'll get started. So again, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your evening tonight to come listen to myself, Eric, and Gary from G Adventures about what it's like traveling post-COVID with G Adventures, and to hear a little bit about our upcoming 2021 Peru tour. And for those who booked or are interested in our South Africa 2022, and I think I said 22 for Peru. So Peru's in 21 and South Africa 22. So again, thank you very much for coming out, and I will pass it off to Gary to get us started.
Fantastic, cool. Hello everybody. What I'm going to do is mute you all, and that way you'll see at the bottom left your mute. So if I'm saying, hey, if there's any questions, then feel free to mute yourself, unmute yourself. In the bottom, you'll also see the chat box. So what I'm going to do is type a question in there or type something in there, so you'll see it pop up, or it'll be blinking at you. So if you have any questions, you don't want to unmute, then you can go ahead and type those questions in, and we'll have a chance to kind of go through and answer those questions.
Oh, did Irene?
There we go. So what I'm going to do is share my screen so you can all see the presentation that I'll be going through. There we go. Awesome. And we should already be recording. Fantastic. So, hi everybody. So my name's Gary. I'm a global purpose specialist at G Adventures. So my role is to work really closely with our travel agent partners right across the country. And so I have the great good fortune of working with Erin and Kemp Travel so that we can, bring a little bit more information to all of you, talk about the, travel during and post-COVID. I'll speak to, safety and all the ways that we're working to mitigate risk and prevent transmission of COVID-19 while people are traveling, and the way that we're doing that on G Adventures. I'll also talk about the why behind G, so why we travel as an organization and what that means to us and people who travel with us. What does it look like to be on a G Adventures trip? And then talk a little bit about Peru and South Africa, the couple of groups that Erin mentioned there as well. And of course, we'll have time for questions at the end. So I want to start with talking about COVID-19. Obviously, it's impacting all of our lives, every day of our lives at the moment. And it is the elephant in the room when it comes to travel. Ultimately, everybody is working to solve this problem. And there's a lot of things that G Adventures are doing as an organization to ensure that we're helping to mitigate risk and ensure that you're able to travel with confidence when you go and visit these other destinations. So if you're looking to travel in 2021, 2022, the impacts of this pandemic are going to be with us for quite some time. But, we're all learning in our own lives how to mitigate those risks and how to continue to live our lives. And so a lot of the things that we are all doing at home are things that we are bringing onto our trips, and really taking a holistic approach. So, before you travel with G Adventures, you'll be receiving a health questionnaire through the Good to Go process and working with your travel agent to make sure that you're comfortable and ready to go once you've booked your trip and it's time to travel. When you arrive, our CEOs will be setting expectations, talking about, what rules and regulations are in place in the destination. While you're on tour, there's a number of things that I'll speak to that we're working on to ensure that we're keeping people safe. And then before you leave and when you're ready to return home as well, we really need to look at every part of the trip to ensure that we're maximizing safety. And safety is always the #1 priority for us as a travel company. There are a few things that we are very lucky, the way that we operate at G Adventures, where we're needing to make very small changes versus having to completely reinvent the way that we see the world. So at G, we've always been about small groups. Small groups are inherently less risky than larger groups. A group of 8, 10, 12, 16 people is going to be, inherently less risky, and also much easier to kind of make sure that everybody's following the guidelines and ensure that we're all being safe, and not only protecting the people on the trip, but also protecting the people in the destination as well. We have my own room options. If you're a solo traveler, if you want to have your own room, then on our Travel with Confidence Plus trips, which I'll speak to briefly as well, there's a reduced cost for that. And it just gives you that freedom and flexibility. If you want to travel by yourself, you're not, if you are okay being paired with a like-minded traveler of the same gender, we can do room shares. But ultimately, with COVID-19, if you want to have a room by yourself, you can do so. our chief experience officers, the guides on the grounds, have always been integral to the way that we run our trips. And when you go to Peru and you have that culture shock, your CEO is there to make sure that you get settled in, that you're embracing that culture shock versus fearing it. And in the same way that when you arrive in Peru, they maybe tell you about how the toilet paper doesn't go into the toilet bowl in Peru, it goes into the waste paper basket next to it. So they will also be speaking about the local rules and regulations around hand sanitizing, mask wearing, all of the things that we know here will be similar there, but also talking about the G Adventures level of protocol as well to ensure that we're keeping everybody safe. So things like mandatory of wearing of masks when we're on vehicles or when we're in areas where social distancing isn't going to be possible. When you're going to certain museums and cultural sites and these kinds of places, again, local regulations are in place, but we also want to make sure that we have that layer of G Adventures mandated protocols as well, because as I mentioned, it's not just about keeping our travelers safe. That is extremely important. But if you're going to rural parts of Peru, rural parts of South Africa, rural and remote locations all over the world, healthcare in those places is not going to be as robust as it is here in Canada. And so we want to ensure that we're not increasing the risk for people in those destinations already. It's really important to look at both sides of that coin. It comes down to the way that we manage our supplies in destination as well. When it comes to planes, trains, automobiles, everything that we are able to control when it comes to regular cleaning, rotations, enhanced cleaning, seat selection on vehicles, these kinds of things. The way that we work with our suppliers, we're able to have a lot of control over what that looks like and ensure that it meets not just national guidelines for that destination, but also stringent guidelines that we have as a travel provider as well. And when it comes to hotels and accommodation, again, we are super lucky. We've always used smaller, locally owned and operated properties. So, you're not in a hotel where you have to catch an elevator to the 20th floor. It's just not the type of properties that we use. More often than not, you're taking the stairs to your second floor or third floor, or you're walking around to where your room is. And, these aren't 1,000-room hotels. It's smaller. And so, again, inherently less risk when we're using these suppliers that we've worked with for a very long time. And again, have those close relationships so we can make sure that, people aren't going into that room while you're in that room, that it's just turned down and cleaned before your arrival and then after you've left. And then food is a really important part of travel as well. We've never overprescribed the number of meals that people have to eat together as a group. We do have certain meals included. Breakfast is almost always included. And so again, working with hotels, working with local suppliers so that you can have your breakfast in a go bag, either eat it before you leave in your room or eat it on the road or once you arrive in a place. And then as far as lunch and dinner, your CEO is there to help point you in the right direction, to, reserve space in restaurants or reserve space outside of restaurants if people are looking to eat together, and then to recommend the best places to get that a la carte eating, or those safe places for street food in destination as well. And so again, we're just having to finesse the way that we operate versus completely reinvent it. And so, there's a lot of different ways that we're able to ensure that you can book with confidence and travel with confidence with G. We have our Travel with Confidence Plus collection. So this is 46 now trips where we take all of these different procedures and processes that we're doing and just dial it up to 11. So even smaller groups on the Travel with Confidence Plus collection, group size maxes at 12 or less. There's private vehicles throughout the trip. So you're never on a public bus, you're never on a public train. Planes, okay, we have to catch planes in certain destinations and we can't have a private plane. But everything else is going to be private vehicles that we have control over. There's a reduced cost for my own room on these Travel with Confidence Plus collection trips. And then all those rooms will have personal shower and washrooms facilities based on dual occupancy. When I talk about travel styles, some of our 18 to 30 something trips, or a camping trip, you would end up having a shared shower block. And that's just not the case for any of these Travel with Confidence Plus collection tours. So the policies that I've discussed are on all of our trips. And then the Plus collection just dials that up a little bit. And so that's kind of, I guess, the safety briefing, which is interesting because, again, at our welcome meetings, these are the kinds of things that we go through and start with. But ultimately, the things that you're doing at home are the things that we're doing on trips. This is a pandemic. It is the same everywhere. And what I also want to focus on is the why. Why are we talking about travel? Why is this so important to everybody who works at G Adventures and to the local communities and the places where you have the opportunity to travel to? Our company was founded by this guy. His name's Bruce. He grew up in Calgary. He came to Toronto and founded G Adventures in 1990. And, the guiding principle, the reason why he founded G Adventures is as important, or if not more important today than it was in 1990 when he founded the business. And it's this idea that travel is a force for good, that travel and travelers will save the world, that the travel industry is a fantastic mechanism for wealth redistribution, that the industry takes some of the wealthiest people in the wealthiest countries in the world to visit some of the poorest people in the poorest countries. And so why can't more of the money that you invest in that trip and you spend on travel, why can't more of that money stay in that local destination and lead to positive outcomes for the people in those places? And there's a number of ways that we realize this goal in the way that we operate as a business. And it's under the title of G for Good. So G for Good is all of the things that G Adventures does in the background to ensure that you are having a positive impact simply by traveling to a destination. The Ripple score is the economic sustainability of the trip. You'll see on the vast majority of our trips a little number out of 100, a metric that shows you how much of the money that you're spending on that trip is staying in that local destination. It wasn't done by us. We contracted a third-party organization to audit our entire supply chain. It took about 5 years. And they have come up with these numbers that show, what the economic sustainability of the trips are. We have our responsible travel policies, as well as Planeterra, our nonprofit organization. So with responsible travel policies, it's all about mitigating unintended negative consequences by going and visiting a destination. It started with our animal welfare policy, where again, we audited our entire supply chain and made sure there was no way in any destination where supplies we were using or interactions that our travelers had with wildlife in destination could potentially have negative consequences for those animals. So no dolphin experiences, no tiger temples, no elephant rides on any G Adventures trip, no unsustainable way of interacting or potentially harmful way of interacting with wildlife on G trips. We also have our policy on working with indigenous peoples to ensure that over-tourism isn't an issue, that we're not in any way undermining or negatively impacting their cultural heritage. That when you are visiting places in Peru, when you are visiting places in South Africa, and you're meeting with these indigenous and rural and remote communities, that they are telling their stories in their way, and that they're able to have that, this immersive travel experience where you're having that cultural exchange, right? Where you're learning about them, but they are also learning about the people that are on this trip as well. So technical difficulties is always part of doing a presentation, but we're back. Awesome. So we also have our responsible travel policy around child welfare. And so G Adventures was the first international travel company to be certified as child safe. And so working in partnership with the Child Safe Foundation, ensuring that, again, there's no on-tour interactions with youth, especially at-risk youth, that could in any way negatively impact those kids. So no orphanage visits on any G Adventures trips, no school visits to active learning classrooms. If you have questions about any of these policies, absolutely type them in the chat box below, or we can talk about them in a second. I'm a Planeterra ambassador at G Adventures, and so enjoy talking and ensuring that I talk about these different programs. Planeterra is the nonprofit sister partner company to G Adventures. It works in partnership with local organizations, NGOs, individuals and businesses on the ground in these different destinations to ensure that they can expand their businesses or create businesses that tie into the tourist economy so that local people can benefit from having travelers visit those destinations. There's a couple of Planeterra projects I'll mention when I speak to Peru. We have over 85 around the world. If you want to know more about how G Adventures is proactive through Planeterra to ensuring that the money that you're spending on these trips is helping to support local people, planeterra.org is a fantastic resource. Also talks about the ways that that organization is working to help support those projects currently during COVID-19, where they're seeing massive reduction in traveler numbers, and how we're able to help support essential food and medicine needs for a lot of these projects. So that's the why behind G Adventures. It's the reason why we have become the world's largest adventure travel company, and a Canadian company at that. I feel that this why, it shows that doing the right thing and doing the profitable thing, these aren't mutually exclusive ideals. You can be a for-profit company and run trips, and you can also help to support local people, have a not-for-profit wing, and ensure that the money that people are spending is staying in those destinations, that you can have both. You don't have to pick. And feel that it's because of this that we became the largest adventure travel company versus despite of this. So I've seen a few things appear in the chat box. Just want to make sure that everybody, the sound is working. Cool, that everybody's admitted. Awesome, that you can still see my screen despite it exiting out there for a second. So before I talk about a little bit on the how we travel, if anybody has any questions, if you want to unmute your mic and quickly ask me a burning question about Planeterra, about G for Good, about the kind of the COVID protocols that we're putting in place, please let me know. Otherwise, I will continue and talk a little bit more about how and then the what. Okay, cool. You haven't missed your chance. I'm going to stop before I launch into Peru and South America, or South Africa as well. Definitely type in those questions into the chat box, and then we can have a discussion at the end as well. But, what does it look like to be on a G Adventures trip? Like, how do we travel? I've alluded to it, but the idea is we do small groups. So there's a number of inherent benefits to doing and being part of a group of 8, 10, 12, 16 people. You're not waiting 20 minutes for everybody to get off of the vehicle. You're not filling up that cultural site, that temple, that restaurant, whatever it happens to be when you arrive at a place. It's you and a few other people, traveling around that destination with your local guide, your CEO, who is showing you their backyard. You're with a group of people, of all different age ranges. Adventure travel isn't just for kids and backpackers. About a third of our travelers are millennials and Gen, is it Z now? And the 2/3 of our travelers are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, or increasingly in their 70s as well with our National Geographic tours. So we talk about like-minded travelers at G Adventures. Adventure travel is exploration. It's pushing your comfort zone just a tiny bit. It's trying that new food. It's meeting those new people. It's going and having a conversation with somebody who potentially, doesn't speak English as a first language or doesn't speak English at all, and you're talking with the help of the CEO to kind of let you know what's going on. It's, that embracing that culture shock when you arrive in a destination and traveling to that place because that is what you're looking for. Getting out of the hotel and really seeing and doing and learning about what life is like for people in different destinations. I think that's, has always been important, but even more so right now as the whole world goes through this pandemic, to be able to see that, we're all in this together in the literal sense of that every community on the face of the earth is being impacted by this virus. And it's never been more important for us to be culturally sensitive and learn that until a vaccine is available to everybody, it's, we're not going to get through this. So that's why at G, we don't break our trips down by destination. We do it by style of travel. So how do you want to go and see the world? What is it that you want to focus on? And so our classic travel style is, clean, comfortable, centrally located, locally owned accommodation, a small group of like-minded travelers from all over the world, from all different ages, choosing that destination that they want to go to explore and learn about the people in that place. It's kind of a balance between guided activities with your CEO, but free time, right? It's not on the bus, off the bus, on the bus, off the bus, on the bus, off the bus. It is, time to explore those highlights with your CEO and have those guided tours, but also time to go and explore on your own. The 18 to 30 something trips, it's, assisted backpacking for 18 to 39-year-olds. It's on a shoestring budget. There's a lot more freedom and free time. And that idea of, traveling with people within that age group, it is one of the only age-restricted travel style that we have. National Geographic is more comfortable. So if your first question is, what are the hotels going to look like? You're looking at our National Geographic Journeys tours, upgraded accommodation, more inclusions, so a little bit more prepaid for, but also still free time when you're in a destination, slightly slower pace of trip in many cases. You're not going around the country as quickly. And then also educational content provided by our friends at National Geographic. So access to their experts in the field. When you're in South Africa and you're visiting Kruger and Karongo National Park, members of the Big Cat Conservation Center will do a lecture and ride with you in those adventure vehicles, so that you're learning from those researchers about the research they're doing and how things like climate change and poaching and these things are impacting animal wildlife numbers from the people who are there. Active, clue is in the title. If you want to hike Machu Picchu, if you want to hike Mount Kilimanjaro, climb to Everest Base Camp, those multi-day hiking, biking, kayaking activities, if you want to be outside as much as possible and see a destination from a bike or a kayak, that's the active trips. Marine, clue is in the title, right? So Galapagos sailing, Antarctica, small ship sailing all over the world. You have amazing resources with Kemp Travel and Erin and her team who can help you dig down into each of these different travel styles and learn about the different types of trips that may appeal to the way that you want to see that destination. Because within every travel style, we have the whole world available to you. We also have private groups. So again, this opportunity to travel with a small group of people, and increasingly now, if you want to travel within your own bubble, we have the Book Your Bubble collection of tours. So 80 different trips where if you can get 8 people together, you can go and have that trip and have your own CEO, have your own guide, have that, we have our National Geographic Journeys family collection. We have a number of family trips. If you want to travel as a family and go to Costa Rica and go to Morocco or visit these different destinations, then you have the chance to do so as your own bubble and kind of travel with people versus traveling with those like-minded travelers that you'll meet from all over the world if you book onto one of our open departures. Again, speak to Erin and her team. They are obviously extremely good at putting together regular private groups, and it's what I'll speak to in a second, is the group to Peru, as well as the group to South Africa, where they enhance those trips and make some fine detailed tweaks in order to tailor it perfectly for the experience that they want for you guys. But equally, if you just want to create a group, talk to Erin and her team. They will be able to help you when it comes to getting those travelers, picking the right type of trip for the group that you have, and then booking that in for 2021 and beyond. So that's the why and the how, and a little bit of the what. And what I'll do is quickly start speaking to, Peru, which is one of my favorite destinations, which you might be able to tell, and also talk a little bit about the highlights that you'll see on that South Africa tour that they're putting together for 2021 or have put together for 2021. But again, I'm going to take a little pause. I'm going to say, hey, if you want to scroll down to the bottom left-hand corner of the screen and open up your mic and ask a question, absolutely, please do so. And then after, I'll continue with destinations of Peru and South Africa.
No, I know. Well, we don't know yet. I don't know. Right now, yeah, but a year from now, I don't know.
Okay, cool. So if there aren't any questions, what I'll do is continue and introduce everybody to Peru and South America. So for many people, when they think of Peru, this is what they think of. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world for very good reason. I've had the very good fortune to visit Machu Picchu on a number of occasions, and it is spellbindingly beautiful. But it is only one of the many reasons to go and visit this part of the world. Peru has been impacted extremely heavily by COVID-19. And so as soon as we are able to operate safely in that region again, we will do so, because we want to ensure that the economic benefits of travel and tourism are helping the people in that destination. Many countries, they don't have CERB, they don't have SUS, right? The different programs that the Canadian government was able to bring out to help support individuals and businesses. And so it's never been more important to ensure that when people are traveling to these destinations, the economic advantages are staying in those places. I have many friends in Peru, and I look forward to visiting there again as soon as I'm able. The itinerary is fantastic. So number one, like any Peru itinerary is fantastic, but particularly the one that Erin and her team have put together. So you have some extra time in Lima. You arrive in Lima, you know, check into the hotel. The flights into Lima are always terrible. You're arriving at midnight or 1 a.m. when you're flying from Canada. So check in, and then the next day you have the opportunity to have a bit of a tour of Miraflores, the area near the coast or on the coast, where you can explore, go to the Parc de l'Amour, you know, see the neighborhoods and the districts, and sample some of the amazing cuisine. Lima is, yeah, world class when it comes to the restaurants that they have there. And so, yeah, everything from street food to Michelin star restaurants. At the end of the trip, you have a bit of time there. You're going to visit Huaca, and I can't pronounce it, and I've been there multiple times, and I still struggle. It's a beautiful, ancient mud structure that was built by some of the earliest settlers of this region pre-Inca, and they have a fantastic restaurant there, and you can go and you can look around the pyramid, the area that was this city hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and learn about the ways of life of the people there, but then also enjoy a fantastic meal in a really beautiful landscape. And it's right in Miraflores, so very close to the hotels and the boutique hotels that we use. So lots to do while you're in Lima. And then the next day we will fly you to Cusco. Cusco in the Sacred Valley. So this is where you're going to start to understand what altitude is like. If you have questions about altitude, I'm happy to speak to it. You know, you just need to take your time when you get to Cusco. Again, the itinerary is set up very well. You arrive in the morning. You have the afternoon free to explore, to have a bit of a guided tour with the CEO. Highly recommend going to the San Pedro market to see the wares that are there. If you would like to purchase some coca leaves to help, you know, get over the impacts of being at altitude, that is the place to do it. And then, you know, you have that entire day to explore, to relax before we take you into the Sacred Valley the next day, where you have a full day of exploring Urubamba and the Sacred Valley, visiting our Women's Weaving Co-op. So this is one of the earliest Planeterra projects that we set up in partnership with the Quechua women of Cacacoyo, where you'll learn, you know, this is where we get the wool, right? This is, and you can meet the llamas and the alpacas. This is how we harvest the wool. This is how we wash the wool. This is how we spin the wool. And this is how we dye it and create these beautiful tapestries and, you know, woven cloths that have been passed down from generation to generation since the time of the Inca and before. You'll see I have my poncho and the little day bag that I use pretty much every day. That was, you know, you don't have to buy anything while you're there. Simply by going and visiting, you're helping to support the people of this community while learning about their cultural heritage. But the scarves are fantastic. Canada's a cold place. There's lots of things. Alpaca wool is extremely warm, and llama wool is extremely waterproof. And so again, I could talk at length about the Women's Weaving Co-op. The Power Restaurant, it's hungry work going and looking and learning about the way of life of the people in the Sacred Valley. And so we worked again in partnership with Planeterra, with the IDB, and with this community to help set up a restaurant so that you know, you can go and enjoy some of the best food you will have in Peru, which is difficult to promise because Peruvian cuisine is world famous. But one of the best meals that you will have, even if you're dining in those Michelin star restaurants in Lima, while you're in the Sacred Valley, farm to table, grown in the region, cooked with love by the people of that community, where the profits from this restaurant, the money that you've put towards your ticket to eat there, going towards the local community, where last year they built a computer lab for the people in this region so that the children there can have digital literacy, which is as important as numerical and written literacy in the 21st century. So again, you go, you enjoy a fantastic meal, but simply by doing that, you're helping support the farmers and the people of this small rural community in the Sacred Valley of Peru. That evening and the following day, you'll stay in Ollantaytambo. You'll learn about the historic site, the Incan site that city is built on, still a UNESCO World Heritage Site. If you look at the image, you'll hike up or walk up the steps and visit the citadels at the top, the Temple of the Moon, and so forth at the very top. From that side, you can see over and see the quarry where they've mined the stone monolithic blocks that were dragged across the river to build the terraces and also the cultural sites at the top. And when you are standing over there, you'll look back over the town of Ollantaytambo and see the Incan storehouses where they would keep their farm goods and learn more about the agricultural systems and you know, how the Inca were able to become such a strong and dominant force during the time period right before the conquistadors showed up and yeah, took over that civilization. You'll have a great night's sleep, and the next day you jump on a train ride up towards Aguas Calientes, where you will you know, have the chance to go up and explore Machu Picchu. All roads lead to Machu Picchu in Peru. You know, it's an absolutely staggeringly beautiful part of the world to visit, to learn about the construction of these buildings at the height of the Incan Empire, to wander through and to do so in 2021 with far fewer people there than historically has been the case. I think is just, it's always a spellbinding experience, and to have the chance to do so and visit this destination at any time is amazing. So learn about the people, have some free time to explore, and then, yeah, you know, get the stamp in your passport when you exit, before heading back to Cusco for a free day the next day. So again, an addition that Erin and her team have put into this itinerary, because you will want to spend more time in Cusco. It is an amazing city. It is the navel of the empire, the center of the Inca world. And so these beautiful 16th century cathedrals that you see built in town are built directly on top of the Incan religious sites as well. So they knocked down the temples and built their cathedrals on top. And so you'll see where the stone changes from these huge blocks into the brickwork of the 16th century architects, the conquistadors, when they were there building these cathedrals. Walking around Cusco is an absolute pleasure. You are at altitude, so you'll be walking at a bit of a slower pace, but just an amazing place to spend more time. There's lots of additional activities that your CEO will be able to help you book while you're there to make sure that you are filling that time. But whenever I'm in Cusco, I just love to walk around and enjoy being in the city. From there, again, in addition to this trip, you'll travel down to Puno and Lake Titicaca and learn about the Uros people. So travel to a very different type of landscape to visit the largest and highest inhabited lake, where the Uros people made reed islands, floated out in the middle of the lake to continue their culture there, free from the peoples who were invading them on the land. Absolutely amazing opportunity, again, to just visit a unique community and people living in a unique way in a very special and remote part of the world. So as you can probably tell, I love speaking about Peru. I can't just speak about Peru, so I'll talk a little bit about South Africa as well. As Erin had mentioned, this trip is September of 2021. September, right at the end of the dry season. Temperatures are going to be around 20, 21 degrees, so it's going to be the perfect time to be going through that destination. And then the lows are around 3 or 4 degrees, so you take a few jackets for when it gets cooler at night, especially when you're in the mountains and at altitude. But it's still likely to have really good weather. And yeah, we're talking, September 21, where there's if we continue, then there's going to be hopefully far fewer restrictions and much more ability to go and travel and see the world. And these places, I don't know. I can keep talking, but I won't. I'll talk about South Africa. Any questions about Peru, please type them in the chat box and I'll answer them just after speaking to South Africa. So this is the trip that's going to be in 2022. Again, a custom trip. Erin and her team, we've provided upgraded accommodation, both on the Peru trip and throughout the South African itinerary as well. So you're going to be staying in, those National Geographic level quality of hotels with G Adventures. With Cape Town, Kruger, and Zimbabwe, they have an amazing flyer that will give you kind of more of the highlights and details of this itinerary. You can see from the map that you're starting in Cape Town. You spend a good few days in Cape Town, which I'll speak to. Fly up to Johannesburg and visit Soweto, and see what life is like in Joburg and the surrounding areas. And then travel up to Karonge Private Game Reserve to have a number of days of safari, exploring, seeing, learning about the animals, the fauna, the flora, the geological processes that have shaped this part of the world, before then traveling up to Victoria Falls, marveling at one of the most amazing natural phenomenon on the planet, I've recently been up to Niagara and Niagara Falls. You forget just how impactful Mother Nature can be. And then Victoria Falls is just on an even grander scale. And so, throughout this trip, time in Cape Town, the ability to explore Table Mountain, to again learn about the geology, the fauna and the flora, spend time in the city, learn what life is like for people in South Africa, meet with the local people and chat with your CEO and learn about how things are going as far as not just the pandemic, but also the water issues that they'd faced over time, like all these different things that impact different parts of the world, to get a first-person view and opportunity to learn and see and interact with people in these destinations, to do a little bit of wine tasting, to travel to the famous wine region, to learn about the process, the terroir of this part of the world, and then to wander the vines, explore and drink in the destination, to spend some time exploring the Cape, to again see the more rural areas around Cape Town, to meet the penguins, the South Africa penguins, or the African penguins, one of the smallest breeds of penguin in the world, but no less adorable and interesting than the giant penguins of Antarctica, before then flying up to Joburg, to visiting Soweto, and then traveling into Karonge National Park in Kruger, to start looking and learning about the phenomenal wildlife that lives in this part of the world. I've spoken a little bit about wildlife conservation, really just a drop in the bucket when it comes to, the challenges facing the natural world and the ways that we can work together and educate people to ensure that we're able to enjoy and marvel and view from a distance these amazing animals in the wild. Of course, to search for lions, to learn about their habits and diets, to meet the zebra. I've heard that zebra meat is delicious. You can, of course, it's interesting when you talk to our guides, our CEOs, they'll often say that what you get used to in South Africa and other parts of Africa is first the guide will tell you about, the mating rituals and the life cycle and the diets and the habitats of the animals. And then they'll tell you what they taste like, because, it's part of the national culture as well. Obviously, you don't eat rhino, but learning about and looking for and exploring and seeing if you can have the great good fortune to learn about lots of different types of wildlife that you're there. Some iconic animals, not just the big five, but everything from the smallest insect to plants to these beautiful birds that they have in the region, to get a better understanding of why this is one of the most popular places in the world to travel to, and also just one of the most beautiful as well. Before flying up to Vic Falls, to marvel at more of this Worth's natural beauty, to learn about the formation of the falls, to see it, and to explore the region, to have a safari on the Zambezi, to look for wild hippo, and just spend time embracing the differences of these different parts of the world. Ultimately, Erin and her team are your best resource when it comes to learning more, not just about G-Adventures and the ways that we work to mitigate risk and ensure that we are economically sustainable, but to learn about all of the different opportunities you have when you go to visit these parts of the world. If you want to extend your stay, if you want to build G-Adventures into a longer itinerary, one of those things that we will likely see with this pandemic is people, one of the benefits, the silver linings, is people traveling to destinations for longer and doing so because of what is there, not just talking about amenities, not just talking about the pools or the sand, but to actually spend more time with the people, immersed in the culture, and to do so because you've always wanted to go to these places. So Erin and her team, absolutely, it costs the same to book a private group with a travel agent as it does to book directly with G-Adventures. They are an invaluable resource when it comes to flights and what's changing when it comes to airlines, about restrictions and visas and getting into destinations, about inoculations for all kinds of different things, to work with local healthcare providers to ensure that you're safe when you're traveling. So, highly recommend drawing on them as an amazing resource for you, a source of information on all things travel. I I don't cut my own hair, especially not at the moment. I don't do my own taxes. I don't book my own travel, right? There are professionals that can help you get the most out of the time that you have when it comes to travel and can ensure that you're having a positive impact while you're doing it as well. We do have, for those people who are looking to book travel in 2021, we've got our 15% off global promotion. So this isn't applicable on the groups. But if you're looking to book a Book Your Bubble trip, or if you're looking to book a regular open itinerary on any of our G Adventures trips between now and the end of the month, speak to Erin and her team. And yeah, we have this global sale on for everything up until that should be October 31st, 2021. So it's never been a more cost-effective time to book your future trip, even while we're looking at uncertainty as far as vaccination and borders and these things. If you're booking trips that far in advance, then you have your lifetime deposit. It's going to guarantee the price that you've got now. And then, if things don't open up and don't change the way that we all hope they do and allow us to go and see the world, then we have flexibility with being able to allow you to cancel and rebook those trips. So thank you guys so much for your time this evening. I really appreciate it. And I'll exit out of my my share screen now. And if you have any questions, then I'm excited to answer them.
Hi. I just wanted to ask a couple quick questions. I was booked on G, was supposed to be actually in Portugal right now. Obviously, that's not happening. So two things. I have a credit. If I book with Kemp, can I use that credit on a tour? And second of all, I'm planning on traveling next year. If I'm looking at a tour that starts at the middle of August and ends, middle of October and ends after the 31st of October, would that still qualify for the 15% off, or does travel have to be finished by the 31st?
Yes and yes to both those questions. I tend to have long answers to short questions. Absolutely. If you have a travel credit with G Adventures, then you can use it with your travel agent. We are where we are because of the support of our agency partners. They are integral in helping ensure that travelers are prepared to get and arrive in destination prepared. And so, yes, any credit you have with G, you can book through your local travel agent. And then it's from the start date. So if a trip was to leave, if the departure is the 31st of October, then it's included in the 15% global promo that we have right now. I should mention it's on everything except National Geographic Journeys, because those Nat Geo trips, they don't go on sale. They're not part of any of these promos that we ever run. It's part of our licensing agreement with National Geographic. But for everything else, literally everything else, you get that 15% off.
Perfect, thank you.
I'd have to go in and look at it. I'll turn the camera on.
And I can see, Wendy, great. That was the question that you typed in. What about altitude sickness in Machu Picchu? This is one of my favorite questions because it affects everybody differently. My body hates altitude. Like, I was surprised when I got there. You just have to slow down. I tend to walk everywhere quite quickly, and I just needed to slow down a little bit just to, take a breath. If I try and talk this quickly in Peru, that's difficult because I tend to talk myself out of breath, which I'm sure everybody around me is happy about. But ultimately, it varies. Talk to your travel doctor before you go. There's medication they can provide that will help with the symptoms, although some people see side effects from that. It's just a matter of slowing down, of making sure that you're drinking plenty of fluids, not eating too big a meal, because that's going to slow you down as well. And stay hydrated. And then for me, I just do what the locals do, which is do coca leaves. So as soon as you arrive at the airport, you'll see them there, and you can go to the local market and get them. And it's interesting because people think, coca leaves and cocaine, and they're very different. Coca leaves are to cocaine the same as grapes are to wine, is the way that my Nat Geo CEO explained to me, whereby, grapes are great. They're good for you. They're full of vitamin C, right? You feed them to children. They're wonderful. They go through a chemical process that then turns them into an alcoholic beverage, usually not fed to children, and also potentially addictive for certain people. And so, you more precautions with that. Coca leaves, same, good for you, fed to children, unless you're an Olympic athlete who may get drug tested. Again, I'm not a medical doctor, definitely speak to somebody, but for me, the physiological impact of caffeine is far higher than coca leaves. Like, I came back from Peru after 2 weeks of not drinking coffee, and I had my first like, you know, Frappuccino double something espresso from Starbucks. And I felt like I almost had a heart attack. Whereas, you know, I'd been eating coca leaves for weeks and yeah, no negative impacts. And it gets rid of the headache. You don't go to sleep after having a big meal. You have a little bit more energy. It's all the benefits of coffee without the drawbacks, but not everybody loves the way they taste. You can get coca tea there, where it's just a tea bag filled with coca leaves, and that helps. But ultimately, most people experience very few symptoms, a little bit of shortness of breath, potentially a headache when you first arrive, especially in Cusco, because you're at maximum altitude. You then go down into the Sacred Valley, and it's not quite as high. And, you know, you have insurance for your trip. If you need to have a doctor come out because you're feeling, you know, more than that, then they will likely prescribe the altitude sickness pills that you can get before you go as well, and just to drink fluids and rest. And, you know, your body adapts extremely quickly. And the older you are, usually the less of an impact altitude has on you, which I've seen in practice as well, because my body hates me. And it tends to be some of the younger travelers on the trips I've been on in Peru who tend to suffer a little bit more. Don't know why that is. Yeah.
I think we had one other question about South Africa.
Yes. So what type of Jeeps are they open and how many people per vehicle? So it depends on the itinerary. With this, what I'd say is it's best for us to get in touch with local operations and find out for this particular trip, because it's in Korongwe. It's in the private game reserve, so we'll be using their vehicles. And I just can't tell you. I know there's different parts of the country and different parts within each country use different vehicles. I don't know the answer to that, but I can find it out for you. And so if you get in touch with Erin and you can get in touch with me, and we'll find out specifically, because if I say it's one, it's going to be another one, and that's doesn't help.
That one, we are for portion of the game drives, there are quite a few different included, and we are in a couple different locations. So there are open Jeep drives. They are small Jeeps. It can be anywhere from depending on how many people are actually at the lodge, because we won't be there just ourselves at the lodge. So it is dependent on that as well. It can be anywhere from 2 people up to 9 people. So depending on the accommodation, we will just be in our own group. So we will do our best to spread out as much as possible to have the best viewing. And given that there are so many drives, we will be able to rotate within the Jeeps to make sure that everyone's had, you know, their time in the best seats if we are having someone in a middle seat. So we will do our best to make sure that everyone gets an outside seat on multiple drives, because we do have so many included. And I did see there was a follow-up question on that one. We are asking if there is a wait list. There is a wait list. We have 2 departures. They are running on the same date. So myself and Eric, who's also on the call, will be escorting those 2 group departures for 2022. But we do have a wait list because we've had so many interested. So if we do get enough numbers to open a 3rd departure, we will do that. We will also reconfirm dates and timing as to when that 3rd departure would be. But if you are interested, please let us know. We will put your names on the list so that if we are opening a 3rd departure, you will be the first to know.
And I'd also like to add that, yeah, our CEOs, our guides on the ground, do this, you know, day in, day out. So, you know, they are there to ensure that you have the best possible experience. And between them and yourselves and Erin, everybody's going to be able to make sure they have the best viewing options and the chance to enjoy the wildlife safely in the region. And of course, I mean, when it comes to the number of people in each vehicle, that may and likely will be impacted by, you know, guidelines within the national park around physical distancing and the number of people able to be in each vehicle based on the regular occupancy of that vehicle. So the fact it's open is going to make things better. But I mean, even into 2022, there's a good chance that we'll continue to see, you know, precautions taken when it comes to, you know, people interacting.
I don't see any other questions in the chat, but if anyone has any other questions, whether it's about Peru or South Africa, G in general, about Kemp Travel, you can unmute yourself or you can put a question in the chat. I'm going to take that as a quick no. No takers on the questions. I'm just going to ask Eric briefly if he has any notes. He will also be escorting the Peru tour in 2021. So if you are interested or are already booked on our Peru tour for 2021, you will be in great hands with Eric. He has been once before in our last escorted Peru tour. So Eric, if you have anything to say, you can also unmute your line and
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Good. Okay. Well, I just wanted to say thanks again to Gary for being here and doing this. Like Erin said, I have been to Peru once before. The pictures just don't do it justice. It's one of the best trips I've ever been on. I'm super excited to go back again. We've also had the chance to kind of take what we had before, get some feedback and improve upon it. So I think it's going to be even better this time around. And I think some people that are on this call have been with Erin and I before, and they can attest to that as well. If anyone has any questions or wants to know more, or actually wants to sit down and just have a chat, have a coffee, please let myself or Erin know, and we'd be happy to talk to you about it and answer any questions and kind of give you even more detail on anything that you're not sure of. And I can tell you it's an incredible trip, and I'm looking forward to meeting everyone that's coming, and same with South Africa. And again, thanks Gary for being here. It's awesome. We love working with G. Sorry, I'm having a Mike Pence moment. There's a fly flying around me here. But yeah, they do a terrific job with sustainable travel and kind of making sure the communities that we visit are supported. So we appreciate all their support, and we're looking forward to these 2 tours. So if anyone has any questions for me or wants to chat, please reach out.
Okay, thank you, Eric. So if we do not have any more questions or anyone wants to just say hi, by all means unmute yourself. But in the meantime, we do have a small G Adventures and Kemp Travel swag bag that we are giving away. So I've been diligently putting everyone's name in my lovely little cup here to see if, you know, I thought I would draw while we're on the call here so we can all celebrate with the winner. We do have a nice, we have a book that Bruce Puntip, who is the founder of G Adventures, he wrote called Looptail. There you go, Eric showing it off there on his end. So you are the lucky winner. We also have some Kemp Travel swag and a few other things, a Nat Geo water bottle, all kinds of stuff. So I will prove that I'm not cheating here. I'll mix them up, and a bunch fell out, but that one is blank. So I'm gonna put those back in here. Bear with me. Okay, try this one more time. I had a blank one in. Okay, so the lucky winner is Bob. Plane. There we go. Okay, so we will have the prize. I will contact you and you can let us know where you'd like to pick it up. But again, thank you very much for taking your time out of your evening tonight. I know there's other things going on, and like Gary had said before, Zoom fatigue is a real thing. And we do really appreciate you coming out and hope that you learned a little bit about ourselves and G Adventures and maybe a little bit more about Peru and South Africa that you didn't know prior. As we mentioned, we are all here to help you with it, whether it's with Peru, South Africa, booking your bubble or an individual trip. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We do have our 3 locations throughout the Durham region, and we have actually a new location up in Lindsay, so in the Kawartha Lakes now as well. So we are Oshawa, Whitby, Bowmanville, and Lindsay, and you can find all of the contact information on our website. Most of you all have our info. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And again, thank you very much for coming out tonight, and we look forward to seeing you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks,